Hello everyone. So, a few months ago, local burger joint McDonald's got into some hot water over statements and photos coming out of Israeli franchises donating thousands of free meals to the IDF during Israel's ongoing attacks against the civilians in occupied Palestine. This is what we in the business world call bad PR. The controversy around these donations led to the company being added to the Boycott, Divestment, Sanctions list, or BDS, so people looking to support Palestine know not to give McDonald's their money. These boycotts across the world are cited by McDonald's CEO Chris Kempczinski as both the results of misinformation, I'll dig into later, and as a major contributing factor in hitting their lowest quarterly growth in profits and stock value in over a decade. Kempczinski is quoted as saying, "It's a human tragedy, what's going on, and I think that does weigh on brands like ours. And boo fucking who, Chris? That's not important right now. You shouldn't be thinking about your brand image." Anyway, if we fast forward to late February this year, they've since announced an anime-themed temporary rebrand campaign called WcDonalds, based on the funny misspellings of the restaurant's name in anime that keep them legally distinct and unaffiliated in a cute way. I mean, they were unaffiliated, at least. And as someone who's been following along with the events in Palestine and has been participating in those boycotts, this raised some red flags. I mean, it's not implausible an isekai anime multiverse-themed rebrand was on the docket before the controversy began, but if that were true, why would they opt for such an absurd gambit? With McDonald's Japan, it's no surprise when they release adorable recruitment shorts or cameo in Makoto Shinkai films or post anime girls dancing to Nyan Cat parody songs on Twitter. But at the very least in the US, I'd assume any promo would either have an affiliation with a celebrity like the Travis Scott, BTS, or Saweetie meals, or have a basis in existing McDonald's lore like that whole Grimace's birthday shake fiasco. It's not too often the marketing department busts out brand new McD's OCs. Right? Something about this campaign seemed fishy, and this was the point where the McDonald's conspiracy started for me. My gut instinct was McDonald's was their rushed attempt to get some of the youths back under the golden arches and mitigate the damage that they told us was the result of the boycotts, and please put a pin in that for now. I mean, literally, I have an evidence board. You don't have to, I'll do it. First of all, the McDonald's promotion isn't very compelling. It's noticeably absent of any new food except for one chili sauce, because that's the condiment all the kiddos can't get enough of from their favorite cartoon animes, chili sauce. The majority of their resources have been put towards custom graphics for cups and bags, a few animated commercials produced by an actual anime studio, and an app-exclusive manga all starring a colorful cast of burger joint-adjacent waifus and husbandos, Shizuru being the best one and Berg a close second, all of whom were designed by artist and frequent McD's collaborator Aki Bright. Or most of them were. What stuck out to me was that these characters weren't all that consistent in their art styles, which isn't a harsh criticism in a multiverse story per se, but it's hard to ignore how sloppy these graphics can get when you're prompted to download them on the website. If I compare the two best characters, Shizuru's art is far more polished. There's room for cute details like the puffy W-shaped highlights in her eyes alongside similar colors in her tomato and cheese earrings and lettuce necklace. Oh, I get it. I didn't think about it. I didn't see the connection until I said it out loud. That's clever. I like the laces on her boots resemble crisscrossed fries, and the overall framing of dark blues, lighter yellows, and bright pinks with darker blue line art makes for a legitimately stellar design. Then there's Berg, who, to be frank, deserves better than this. His art by contrast is sketchy, the colors are basic and not properly filled in, he was clearly drawn with a symmetry ruler in contrast to Shizuru's more dynamic pose, and for whatever reason they have all of these garish action lines around his PNG by default. Which isn't to say that Berg isn't already iconic, it's that he doesn't get the refined artwork that Shizuru has, even though they both went up on the website at the same time, which leads me to assume that Shizuru's art was probably refined by the production studio that made the commercials, and Berg and a lot of others here have the rough sketches that Aki sent over. That, along with the limited amount of time that Aki Bright had between live art shows in September, November, and December, leaving him at best one full month in October to get all of these characters done so they could be shipped off to the production studio, and he could give his full attention to the app-exclusive manga going out the following year. But the reason I bring all this up is that none of those observations explain why one of those styles has such an uncanny resemblance towards the work of Russian illustrator Ilya Kuvshinov. You can tell based on the circular highlights around their pupils and the shape and angle of their lips and eyelids. Again, think about Aki's other concept art. The majority are loose and sketchy, and we know these aren't ones that were refined by the studio because look at all the other ones. I have no idea who these people even are yet. So if those precise highlights weren't relevant earlier, adding them to these characters would only be a waste of time. So I dug through their Twitter to see if there's anything closer, and sure enough, this piece from 2020 is an almost perfect match. But if you think this one match to a piece with a different color palette from years ago is a slight stretch, I understand. Anyway, here's another piece from the same artist, also in 2020, next to a different McDonald's OC. Heck, she even has a burger in this one. To be clear, this isn't me accusing Aki Bright of plagiarism. It's demonstrably not his art style, and if anything, he was stretching himself thin with this project already. I think this was likely someone else on some McDonald's staff team who had to find a way to fill out the roster a little bit more because they wanted a lot of characters to make this look impressive, which again, not Aki Bright's fault. So for Aki, I think he should probably distance himself from the brand for a while once this is out. I don't have that kind of power. Okay, now let's address the misinformation I mentioned earlier. Here's a quote from a catering company that operates in McDonald's Kuwait. What the licensee in Israel did was an individual and private act, and not with the approval or direction of the international company or any other licensee, especially in our Arab world. So there you have it. This was an individual choice made by an independent franchise and does not reflect the views of McDonald's as a corporation. Plus, to their credit, McDonald's locations in the United Arab Emirates later donated millions to Palestinian relief funds. So there you have it. This was misinformation, and McDonald's, the corporation, shouldn't be held accountable for the actions of their Israeli franchises. So yeah, case closed. However, these aren't very balanced responses, are they? Since I'm already ripping off Shaun's video format, I'm just gonna build off of his two dudes hitting each other analogy that he used for his Palestine video, which is an objectively way better video than this, by the way. Let's imagine that you're watching Tom and Bill's fight, and you see me step out of my sandwich shop over to those two and hand a free sandwich to Tom, but not give anything to Bill. My actions would likely be interpreted by you as taking Tom's side. So if you got upset with me and told people that they shouldn't buy my sandwiches anymore, I can't just turn around and make a big show of donating money to Sally the outsider who might be able to give Bob his own sandwich once the fight dies down, because in this hypothetical situation, Tom is also pushing helpful people away from Bill to keep Bill hungry between Tom's attacks. If McDonald's wanted to present themselves as a neutral party in this conflict, or at least present themselves in a way that would shirk off responsibility, while adhering to the precedent set by those independent donations to the Israeli government, then it stands to reason that other McDonald's locations could also donate to ruling powers in Palestine and still have wiggle room under this defense. But you already see the problem there, right? All the folks apathetic or enthusiastic towards Palestinians being murdered would suddenly clutch their pearls at the notion of their beloved Ronald supporting Hamas. But the people who need food are Palestinian civilians. Israel has been deliberately starving them since October, blocking any viable entry points for humanitarian aid along their entire border and the coast with their US-funded military, and even Israeli civilians are sitting in front of trucks in protest of any attempt to keep the remaining victims alive longer. The most recent example of this heinous shit Israel has been pulling, while I was writing the script during the fucking anime promo was the Flower Massacre on February 29th, where IDF opened fire on Palestinians rushing towards basic supplies like water and flour. Israel took the lives of 118 more Palestinians and wounded over 700, and that is all on top of the already 30,000 taken by this genocide, over half of whom were children. To spoil the end of my video a little early, this is why I hate conspiracy theories. There's a facet of the same self-assuring, hypocritical logic that allows deeply evangelical conservatives to delude themselves into ridiculous beliefs like the Earth being flat or climate change being a myth or vaccines not working, which has caused plenty of deaths in their own right. That's allowing an honest-to-God genocide to continue. It's how the Just Asking Questions crowd can watch the IDF's Twitter state that they've investigated themselves for war crimes and decided that they didn't commit any and blindly nod along. It's infuriating. And you want to know the real kicker? McDonald's wasn't telling the truth when they said that their decline in stock values was because of Israel. Here's a screenshot I took of McDonald's stock prices over the past several months, and you'll notice a sharp decline going into October. And while I'm no economist, I'm pretty sure the line isn't supposed to do that. Something was going terribly wrong with the company before October 7th. And when Newsweek has a headline like McDonald's faces destruction of its business model under new labor rules up on October 2nd, I think it's worth highlighting as a potential factor. The article describes how a revision by the National Labor Relations Board states, quote, "The independent federal agency is considering broadening the definition of what counts as a joint employer, making it easier to hold umbrella corporations responsible in labor disputes and negotiations with trade unions. Basically, it's an adjustment to labor laws that restrict McDonald's, the corporation, from hiding behind the independent franchise's excuse for labor violations and holds them accountable for wider violations like spying on employees and the union busting that they've reportedly been pulling before." An alteration, Michael Lehman, Senior Vice President for the International Franchise Association, described the risk of liability posed to franchisors as a fundamental changing of the rules in the middle of the game. Does that mean that the boycotts aren't a contributing factor and that they weren't affecting McDonald's growth? Obviously not, but it's better described as the entire world kicking them while they're down, as they rightfully should. But I want to stress what just happened here. The logic that they use to justify their direct support of a genocide is the same excuse that allows McDonald's to exist in the first place. As long as McDonald's can hide behind the excuse that every business that opens under their name is an independent franchise and they don't have to be held responsible, shit like this can just keep happening. So, why am I making this video? Well, I was wrong a while back. See, when I first saw that one clip of McDonald's cat girls dancing to the Nyan Cat thing, I was angry. And I wanted to believe that this was supposed to distract me from the genocide. I thought they were connected, and they are, but not in a way that has motive. So when I tweeted something about how they wanted the boycott to end, that was me opening myself up to fall down a conspiratorial mindset, because they is everybody and nobody. It's just the nebulous concept that someone somewhere is connecting two ideas and laying them out, and it was my job to decrypt it in order to expose the truth, rather than accept the easier but boring reality that this was just the result of a company wanting more money. I was raised in a deeply conservative evangelical household. I was constantly told to believe things without question, and that if my gut told me something was true, then it must be true, unless it contradicts something that they said, in which case it's not true, and I should just ignore it and not think about it, and also, it's probably not even real. Like, have you seen the Earth from space? How do you know it's round? And I hate that about myself. I hate that there's a part of my brain that is wired this way, and I have to be vigilant of how my beliefs form. The reason I felt obligated to make this video is that I understand it's difficult as an outside observer to envision the conditions that entrap people in conspiratorial thinking without experiencing that yourself. I have seen people straight up deny the Holocaust because of what's going on in Palestine, because there's a simple reductive mindset that you can fall into where you equate all Jewish people with the Israeli government, and it makes it easier to dig yourself into a narrative that's convenient. And I don't want to get anywhere near that. By framing what happened to me around this dumb little ad campaign from a corporation with far more than enough legitimate condemnations to hurl towards, it lets me highlight where a line can be crossed into dangerous territory by accident if we're not careful. It's one I have to stay conscious of, and I'm scared of how quickly I can let myself be drawn back in, even if it's only for a few days. There are times where intuition is valuable, but we can't afford to delude ourselves that our gut instincts are always trustworthy, and we have to be open to the understanding and experiences and knowledge of others. There's too many lives at stake to risk it any other way, including your own. There is so much to be said about how we view harm and justice, but luckily the leftist cooks have produced an excellent video on that already, so I'll link it along with the other videos that I've mentioned down below. But for now, in conclusion, fuck conspiracy theories, fuck McDonald's, free Palestine. Thank you for watching. And there we go. That's the end of the video. Something I forgot to mention in my script is an app I've been using called No Thanks on, I believe, Android. You just scan barcodes and it tells you whether or not they're on current boycott lists, which is really helpful. I don't know if I'm going to make more videos this serious. This was supposed to be a little bit more fun, but then as I kept writing, it kept getting more this because I have a lot of personal baggage around conspiracy theories, and I just wanted to get some of that frustration out in a way that might draw more awareness to what's going on in Palestine. And this sort of semi-clickbait format seemed like a good way of doing that. So hopefully the next video will be a little bit more fun, but in the meantime, please support everyone going through this as much as you can.